podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
No breaks. No breaks. No fear. No fear. The official British Speedway podcast.
It's the most wonderful time of the year as British Speedway comes back on your screens as the Premiership League season gets underway on Monday. Joining me in this episode to look ahead to what's going to be coming up on your TV, to the chances of all of the Premiership League teams, we're going to be speaking with Dave Rowe from Eurosport. And he's going to be staying with us throughout the whole episode to look back on the action from the past week and look ahead to what's in store over the next 7 days. In the show today, we're going to hear from Chris van Straaten. We're going to hear from Richie Worrall, Simon Stead, Stewart Dickson of the Leicester Lions, and Jamie Swales of the Redcar Bears, to name just a few. That's all on the way in this week's episode of No Breaks, No Fear.
No breaks, no fear. The official British Speedway podcast.
Welcome to the official British Speedway podcast, No Breaks, No Fear. I'm Ian Brannan, and first of all, I just want to start by passing on my thanks to everybody who took the time to get in touch to say how much they appreciated the podcast last week. It was a tribute to Nigel Pearson. It was an incredibly difficult episode to put together, not just for me, but for everybody who paid tribute and gave their memories of Nigel. And hopefully in listening to it, you learnt a bit more about the background to Nigel and a bit more about the man he was away from the microphone, as well as the man you knew, of course, coming out of your TV sets or your radios or wherever you'd listened to him in the past. But I know many people found it both interesting and also a source of comfort as well, and reassurance to hear the various stories that were passed on. And I think Nigel would have been delighted to know that that particular episode is the biggest one we've ever done, and it got to number 3 in the charts. I think people from right across sport have listened to it, but obviously I don't think in the circumstances we wanted this to be the case. But thank you to everybody who took the time to listen. On with the show, as Nigel would say, and this week we are previewing the upcoming action on Eurosport as the Premiership season gets underway. The TV meetings are coming up, and we're going to find out more about what the TV viewing is going to have in store. Plus, as well as that, we're going to find out more about the teams as well, with the help of Dave Rowe, who is part of Eurosport's team this year once again, and he'll be on your TVs bringing you insight from each of those matches that are going to be happening on a Monday night on Eurosport. And Dave, like many of us, you've been finding this week a great many things that Nigel did or looked after that actually nobody realised that he was doing, and it's been a fairly busy week for you and fairly mixed emotions.
Yeah, hi Ian. In more ways than one, that's certainly the case. It's been an emotional time for us all, obviously, and that will continue to be the case. I can only echo what you said there about the episode from last week. It was a great listen. It was also a tough listen, and it was tough, I'm sure, for you to put together. And I'd also point people in the direction of this week's Speedway Star has an absolutely stunning front cover design and more tributes to Nigel inside. It's tough for everyone. It's a cliche to say the show goes on, we keep it going, and of course we do. But you're right, we're already finding plenty of things that we know he's involved in, and we just want to carry on in his memory, obviously. But yeah, it's been tough for us all.
Yeah, and you can ensure that his memory will definitely live on, certainly in British Speedway and how things operate. Obviously, we've paid tribute to a number of people who have left us over the past year in the world of Speedway, and each time when we've paid tribute to them, Nigel's always said afterwards, right, we've done the tribute now, we've paid our respects, let's move on. And I think that's what Nigel wants us to do and talk about the action that's coming up, because it's a big week in Speedway. We're less than a week away from the first TV meeting on Eurosport. It's all going to start at Monmore on Monday night. Wolves versus Kings Lynn is the fixture. It's happening on Bank Holiday Monday as well, May Day Bank Holiday, so you've got all day to get yourself ready for it and look forward to some action on TV. Dave, you're going to be part of the coverage on Eurosport. I just want you to explain, first of all, how it's all going to work, because people are maybe getting a bit confused. We've got Discovery Plus, we've got Eurosport 2. A lot of people wondering what channel's all the Speedway on. Well, really, Eurosport 2 is what you need, and then Discovery Plus is going to offer you a bit more of an advanced service, isn't it? Just explain how it's all going to work this year.
Yeah, the main difference is that whilst all the meetings are still on Eurosport 2, so you'll still see the deal is still in place. It's 18 domestic meetings in the season, all on Eurosport 2. That includes all the playoffs and the British final. The difference is that if you have the app, you can have the app running alongside your TV coverage or whatever. If you watch it on the app, you will not get the commercial breaks. The commercial breaks take place in the TV show, probably I think around 6 or 7 of them during the evening. Probably amounts to maybe 25 minutes, half an hour in a 2.5 hour show. On the app, what you will get is some different content, Speedway content, to fill those gaps. Now that will that's all sorts of things that are going to be involved. Some of it will be additional coverage of the other meeting. When there are 2 meetings in one night, people will be aware. I've been involved in that in last year. There'll be more extended coverage of the meetings with the footage coming in from the other meeting elsewhere. That will be used during those ad breaks on the TV. There'll also be some more technical stuff. Eurosport are looking at a touchscreen system like you see in football analysis, etc., to get more into the depths of what's actually going on, what decisions are being taken on track, who's doing what. That's what they're interested in. The helmet cam came in during the grand final last year. I thought it was the best helmet cam we've had. It's been tried before 3 or 4 times. I thought the footage that came out of that in the grand final last year was absolutely excellent. That is in as well. So there's all sorts of different bits and pieces via that, especially via that app, that if you are watching on the app, you will see more content to fill those breaks. So you'll get basically a continuous 2.5 hour show with no ad breaks. If you carry on the TV, then it's exactly as it was before. You'll still see all the races. You will also get the ad breaks in between.
And especially when it comes to the Grand Prix coverage as well, you're going to get extra stats, aren't you, on Discovery Plus, which I think is going to come into British Speedway. I'm not sure if it's the same level or not, but certainly with the GP coverage, they're going all out. You're going to have reaction times, fastest laps, who's travelling the shortest distance, and if you're a statistician, you're going to have a wonderful time. Yeah, I
like things like reaction times, particularly from the start. I liked it when in the Grand Prix it became clear that you gave basically a lap time, or a race time I should say, that sorts out close finishes. That's a really good thing. As you say, lots of extra things coming in that we'll get used to as the weeks go by, and the Grand Prix is a bit of a voyage of unknown in terms of all the technical side of it, different things happening around the same basic format. But I mean, the concept of continuous coverage is one that I had a bit of experience of last year with the European Championship and the under-21s as was, because that was it. There was no break. You simply talked all the way through. And I guess that will be the case to an extent this year with all the other extra bits put in. So there's a feeling in the industry that eventually TV viewing will switch into this system of watching online, watching on apps and so on. And this is heading in that direction. But I think the key is retaining the TV viewing for those who want to do it that way, and that's what they will do. And yeah, all sorts of new stuff coming in. It's going to be an interesting weekend.
On to the action then. Monday night, as I say, at Monmore, Wolves versus Kings Lynn, the first match to be televised. And we'll talk about Wolves in a moment, but first of all to Kings Lynn, because they've had a cracking start to the season this year. The first team to be confirmed in the final of the Premiership League Cup competition. And quite a contrast to last year when it was full of promise and it all sort of fell apart at the seams a bit. But this year, they're carrying on through. They've got to a cup final. They seem to have good team spirit. And, are they the outsiders we should be looking at this year?
I think Kings Lynn are one of the probably the big story of the season so far. I think the 2 clubs that have been the most successful so far in the League Cup have been Kings Lynn and Sheffield. I think we all felt the Sheffield team looked excellent on paper, so the fact that they've won 3 out of 3 was impressive, but not the biggest surprise. But I think Kings Lynn have been the big plus, certainly as far as they're concerned, in terms of doing a major rebuild, which they had to do, and they've been really, really impressive. The big signing has without doubt been Josh Pickering. He's hit the ground running. He's had some spectacular rides so far in all 3 meetings. And in many ways, they've followed the Peterborough format of last season in having the strong reserve in Richie Worrall in their case. who's also started the season very well in both leagues. And they have the knowledge that should he score well and move up, then it'll be someone like, for example, Thomas Jorgensen, who will move down. It worked for Peterborough last year. Kings Lynn, as things stand, have the number one in Niels Christian Iversen. Obviously, we are awaiting official confirmation as to what's going on there on a long-term basis, but the signs there are really encouraging. And with the fact that they've beaten Peterborough home and away, and they beat Ipswich heavily last night, albeit a depleted Ipswich side, I'm sure they will go to Wolverhampton next Monday, feeling they've got a real chance of getting something there.
The slight elephant in the room a little bit is the Peter Kilderman, Niels Christian Iversen situation. Niels Christian Iversen is currently in the team, but he's due to depart. Peter Kilderman originally named in that lineup, and no real confirmation so far of what's going to happen. Is Niels going to stay on? Is Peter Kilderman actually going to take his place or not? But that's a big one, isn't it? Your number one rider in the team, and that really needs sorting out, doesn't it?
Well, Kilderman you're absolutely right, has been riding on the continent. He's also been involved in, I think, at least 2 crashes since he came back. There was one in Denmark with Hans Andersen. There was another one last weekend. I think there are concerns genuinely over what his fitness situation is. I wasn't at Kings Lynn on Monday night, but I'm told that in the after-match press conference to do in the bar and so on, Niels Christian Iversen was sort of dropping hints and so on about the fact that this situation could well be extended. He's clearly enjoyed his first couple of weeks back with Kings Lynn, and I'm sure that the club would be delighted to do that. So, encouraging signs for them. And when you bear in mind that Richard Lawson, who was so good for them last year and is riding well in the Championship, has had a couple of home meetings where he's not scored massive points. He's certainly been involved in the team effort. They look good, and if they can get that situation sorted with Iversen or whoever, then yeah, Kings Lynn definitely have the potential. There's it was quite clear to see when I watched them at Peterborough last Monday. The togetherness is there. There's no doubt that Alex Brady has done a really good job there. It's a completely fresh face, fresh voice on the situation at Kings Lynn. A younger man who's obviously the same age as some of the riders. They seem to have formed this real good bond, this good spirit together. Josh Pickering speaks exceptionally well as captain. He also rides exceptionally well. So they're not going to make any outlandish predictions just yet. As you say, they were talking a good game last year under a different group of people in charge, different riders. But Kings Lynn look really good so far.
As for Wolves, they were at the top of the league table for so long last year. It looked like they had it all sewn up, that they were going to get straight through to the final, and it would be all sort of a bit academic, really, that it was all nailed on for Wolves. And then Peterborough came along, Dad's Army did the business and threw a spanner in the works. This year, obviously, they've got quite a strong side still. Not many changes to the lineup, just a couple of additions to the Wolves squad. So they're all a team that have been together for a little while now, and Peter Adams hoping to go one better, surely, this year. Yeah,
obviously they have to get there first, which, as you say, they always tend to be there or thereabouts at Wolverhampton. And the last 2 seasons, that's 2021 and 2019, they've made the playoffs comfortably, and then on the night of their home semi-final, the heavens have opened literally in the hour before the start. 19 was against Swindon, last year was against Peterborough. It's destroyed the home advantage they have, and as a result, they lost both home matches and pretty much went out at that stage. They'll be desperate for that not to happen again. As you say, a couple of changes. Steve Worrall, I think, is a pretty astute sign. They knew they had to replace Rory Schlein. Obviously, he was leaving anyway. What's interesting is that after the first week, when they lost at home to Sheffield, they immediately made a riding order switch. They moved Steve Worrall to number 2 to partner Sam Masters. Real strong opening pairing, and they've basically put Nick Morris at 5, whereas he'd been previously in the middle order with Ryan Douglas. Now, we know Nick Morris can cope with that because he was part of a really successful Swindon team back in around 17. He was an out-and-out number 1 around that time. He was a spearhead with Jason Doyle, and then had a couple of years where it didn't quite go right. So there's more responsibility on Nick Morris coming in at 5, but a position that he can certainly handle. And that opening of Masters and Worrall for Wolves, I think, could get them off to big starts in quite a few meetings. So, yeah, they will definitely feel they should be there. They need to... the reserves, Drew Kemp and Leon Flint, need to give them time to bed in themselves. Leon had half a season with them last year as well. Very strong top 5 to crack round Monmore Green. Sheffield did it, of course, in the League Cup, but you would still suspect that Wolves won't drop that many points at home this year.
And that change to the lineup also gives them a strong Heat 13 pairing as well, doesn't it? With Nick Morris and Sam Masters together for that one, and then Sam Masters and Steve Worrall together for Heat 1. So they've got strength throughout the race card, really, with that.
Like I say, people tend to forget that Nick Morris had an average of over 8.5 with Swindon 4 or 5 years ago. He's a class act, and Sam Masters is still getting better. He's one of the top riders obviously in the Championship and the Premiership. He's an out-and-out number one with Wolverhampton, and they could do so. There's some good top ends in this league this year. Don't undersell that, but there'll be some good battles in Heats 13 and 15. But yeah, you'd like to think you would think that Masters and Morris and Ryan Douglas flying this season as well so far. That's a strong team at Wolves.
It is a strong lineup for Wolves, but as we're mentioning, strong lineup for Kings Lynn as well, and a lot of experience of the Monmore circuits among their number as well this year. Of course, the two face each other on Monday. We can hear now from Chris van Straaten, the Wolves promoter, who's been looking ahead to that fixture, and particularly the strength that Kings Lynn are offering this year. He's been chatting to Ryan Guest.
Yeah, a lot of riders in that team with experience of the Monmore Green circuit, having ridden for us at one time. And I think Lawson showed his capabilities when he guested for Birmingham in our opening fixture. And you had all the other riders in there, as you say, the Worrall twin at reserve, probably the strongest reserve in the whole Premiership. So it's going to be quite a tussle.
And Niels Christian Everson as well, at number one, the fastest man around this track as well.
Yeah, track record holder, which is, he's held for some considerable time, and he's always a quality performer here. So there doesn't appear to be a weak link. I mean, their rising star, he's one of the most established rising stars. He's been turning in some big scores recently. So there's not a weak link in that team. So we've all got to be firing. Each one of the Wolverhampton team has got to be on top form.
Yeah, and I know the boys were disappointed with that opening night defeat against Sheffield, but they certainly seemed a lot happier after those two bank holiday wins against Bellevue.
Yeah, I think the change in the team helped. It was kind of the early season meetings just to see how the team worked out, because although there's a number one in the averages, there's no outstanding number one in terms of it. We've got a top five where either one of them could top score and it wouldn't be a surprise. So when you've got the top five like that, you have to make sure you got them riding with the right partners. And I believe it worked better against Bellevue, and I think we've hit the right format now.
Yeah, and like you say, with it being the first league meeting, with the proud record you normally have here at Monmore Green, important to get off to a winning start in that first League One.
It is. We don't like losing at the best of times, but I think to lose the first league match would be a bitter pill to swallow.
Well, Chris van Straaten there, the Wolves promoter, speaking to Ryan Guest. Looking ahead to that first televised fixture from British Speedway's Premiership, Monday night, Wolves versus Kings Lynn. You can watch it for yourself on Eurosport and Discovery Plus. Now, Dave Rowe, tell us about the actual show, because tape's up at 8 o'clock, but you're on air from 7:30, and that period between 7:30 and 8 is a bit of a preview show, isn't it, to the season coming up?
Basically, of course, as we know, there was a media day at Bellevue a couple of weeks ago now, which, terribly sadly turned out to be the last event that Nigel hosted. Nigel hosted the media do. We did interviews. It was quite funny actually, because there were 18 guests there, if you like. There were six team managers, 6 captains, and 6 rising stars, one for each team at Bellevue. And over the course of about an hour, I interviewed them all for TV, just literally one off the other. And Nigel came up to me afterwards and said, "You've never worked that hard, have you?" But the idea is that basically there'll be clips of those interviews shown during the first hour on Monday. There was going to be some track action at Bellevue. Unfortunately, it rained, so they didn't get on track. But yeah, you'll be seeing plenty of preview material in the hour before start time on Monday, and then racing gets underway at 8.
Wolves versus Kings Lynn, then the season opener on Eurosport 2 and Discovery Plus. 7:30 the show starts. Tapes up at 8 o'clock. However, before that though, there is another fixture. The very first fixture in British Speedway's Premiership gets underway at lunchtime. 12 o'clock start at the National Speedway Stadium for the Bellevue Aces versus the Peterborough Panthers in a rerun of British Speedway's Premiership Grand Final last season. Of course, it was Peterborough who took the spoils that time. Dad's Army winning the league championship, and what a way to start.
Yeah, and what a meeting that was, or what a grand final that was. Both legs were I think one of the best grand finals we've had, certainly in terms of racing. And actually, all three of Peterborough's trips to Bellevue last year were really, really exciting. Lots of drama. There was a draw on a bank holiday. There was a narrow Peterborough win, and there was that grand final. So I'm sure more of the same. Peterborough, yep, you mentioned Dad's Army back again. Obviously, Bjarne Pedersen has retired. The addition to the side, Benjamin Basso, who you can't exactly put as a member of Dad's Army at the age of 20, but how good has he been so far for Peterborough in his two meetings? He's been truly spectacular, so that's exciting. And obviously, Peterborough will also hope that Michael Palmtoft is fit. Got concussed against Kings Lynn last Monday. I believe he's due back for Plymouth this Friday at Scunthorpe. So as long as all goes well there, he'll be in for a full Peterborough side. And Bellevue have had a tough time in the League Cup so far, no question. But we know what they're intending to do, and I think that might make it pretty tasty on Monday.
Yeah, and that rider in question at Bellevue that Dave's alluding to there, of course, if you haven't heard already, Mate Zagar on his way to Bellevue, although at the time of recording this, the official rubber stamp has yet to be approved in terms of the immigration paperwork, all the admin, if you like, away from Speedway. So we're waiting for the official approval of all that. Assuming it all goes through, though, we'll have Mate Zagar on this podcast next week. We'll bring you an interview with him on next week's show. But assuming it all goes to plan, Mate Zagar, another Grand Prix rider in Bellevue's ranks. We know what he can do. He's ridden there before, and surely that's got to be a huge boost to Bellevue's title aspirations this year. As you mentioned, it's been a long time, but what a signing for Bellevue.
It's a game changer for Bellevue, no question about that. You always know, I mean, Jay Carroll, they knew was a short-term signing because they knew they went all out to try and get Dan Bewley. It didn't work. We know the situation there. So they actually started the season 3 or 4 points under the points limit, and then the results that followed probably didn't surprise them, because that's what tends to happen. You can be a point under the points limit and you'll be competitive and you'll still win things. When you're that far underneath, really regardless of what the rider coming in does, you're going to be struggling. To now be deploying a team with Max Frick, Brady Kurtz, Zagar pending confirmation, and Charles Wright as the top four, plus the way Tom Brennan's been going as the rising star, that looks very, very good. And Bellevue, of course, have come close numerous times for several years. They don't need reminding that it's 1993 since the last time they won the top league title. They must feel that gives them a chance. Zagar rode very well in the Craven Memorial at Bellevue a month or so ago. Loves the track there, rides it really well. And that is certainly going to make them a lot stronger, assuming that paperwork goes through.
There is a bit of an elephant in the room with Bellevue, isn't there? And that's that lack of league title, as you mentioned before. 1993, the last time they won it. An incredible amount of time has passed since then without a top-level league title to Bellevue's name. Is that a bigger deal for the fans or the riders? Do you think the riders get affected by that, or is this this time that's elapsed bigger deal for the fans, because obviously the fans have been around a lot longer and probably got longer memories, and it's a thing that the fans want to get off their back?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it affects the riders, because most of them weren't even born when that title happened in 93, and most of them won't have been around Bellevue for that many years, so they shouldn't feel it. But Mark Lemon knows it's a question he gets asked time and again at the start of every season, whenever they go into the playoffs, because they've constantly made ever since Mark Lemon's been there, they've made playoffs every time, they've made grand finals, and they've come up short for whatever reason, and those questions will still continue to be asked until they win that trophy, that league title. All sorts of reasons why it's gone wrong in previous years, but they have had strong teams, and certainly since probably 2014, 2015, they'll feel they're owed at least one league title, and they've just got to find a way to get over the finishing line. Realistically, when you look at last year, okay, they lost Brady Kurtz at the very end for the playoffs when he crashed out in the Czech Golden Helmet, but they had the opportunity when Hans Andersen crashed out of the grand final in the first ride. They had Peterborough in a really tough spot when they were 8 points in front into the closing stages, races that looked like they'd favour Bellevue, and suddenly Peterborough came charging back into it. And then you always felt after the first leg, I felt that Peterborough would then hang on and take it in the second leg. So Bellevue have got to find that way of getting out of the line. Now, whether that's psychological or mechanical or anything else, I don't know. The riders can't let it get to them. Once you start getting that sort of thing in your head, then that's when things do start to go wrong. But as I say, with that top four and then the Rising Star and so on, the ingredients are in place for Bellevue. It's just delivering it on track.
And Bellevue have got well-established heat leaders. They've got Grand Prix riders, but they've also got strength down at the reserve department as well. Norrick Bladorn, a hugely exciting rider who is yet to deliver his best for Bellevue, undoubtedly, but he's learning all the time, and I think the fans can see that. You got Tom Brennan, who, of course, knows his way around the National Speedway Stadium and proved that with being part of that Speedway of Nations winning side and great pretty much everywhere he goes, I think, as well at the minute. And Connor Bailey, who races with Tom Brennan at Glasgow, who a lot of excitement about him. You know, I was at Glasgow the other week and the fans there really enjoy watching Connor Bailey race, and he's Bellevue's number 8. So there's a lot of strength in depth down in the lower order as well.
Yeah, I like what I've seen from Bladorn. Saw him in the under-21s last year, and definitely a talent. And probably with the way Tom Brennan's going, the pressure is off him to an extent at reserve, because Tom Brennan can pick up a lot of the slack there. And Tom, we've spoken to him in the build-up to the season, and I know you've spoken to him extensively too, and he speaks really well as well. The issue to add was his home form. Last year, his away results for Bellevue were much better than his home results. Early on, that seems to be getting sorted this season. And you mentioned they have Connor Bailey in the wings. It'll be interesting to see how these number 8s get deployed over the season. Some clubs have number 8s who are sort of more obvious stand-ins than others. But basically, if the number 7 is unavailable for any reason, then the number 8 is the rider who comes in. And also you can just decide to use the number 8 if you fancy it. If the number 7 is not having a great time or having a bad run or whatever, you can use the number 8. For example, at Ipswich, they're going to use Daniel Hume actually as a guest on Thursday because they see him as someone who's sort of that level. And there's a few who perhaps aren't quite at the same level as the existing Rising Star, but it's one to watch out for over the season to see who develops and who scores those points. But I think, certainly in answer to your question, with the way that's structured at the lower end in particular, and the way Tom Brennan can score, then he could get extra rides. It certainly could be a real force in that position. And again, it makes Bellevue a good all-round unit.
So, the opening fixtures of the British Speedway Premiership season are on Monday. It's Bank Holiday Monday, May the 2nd. 12 o'clock start, Bellevue versus Peterborough Panthers. That's at the National Speedway Stadium. It is not live on TV. But what is live on TV from 7:30 and the start time at 8 o'clock for Wolverhampton Wolves versus the Kings Lynn Stars. So you can watch that on Eurosport 2 and on Discovery Plus as we enter this new era of British Speedway on television. And next, here on No Breaks, No Fear, we're going to look at another two teams that we haven't spoken about yet in the form of Ipswich and Sheffield. And we will hear from Simon Stead, the Sheffield team manager. And that's all on the way in the next part of No Breaks, No Fear, the official British Speedway podcast.
No Breaks, No Fear, the official British Speedway podcast.
Welcome back. I'm Ian Brannan, and this week I'm joined by Dave Rowe of Eurosport to look ahead to the opening fixtures that are going to be happening in the British Speedway Premiership over the next week or so. We're looking a little bit further ahead than we normally would, and out towards next week, next Thursday, which will be May the 5th we're on to, because on the Thursday there's a few fixtures happening there, and the Ipswich Witches are hosting the Bellevue Aces at 7:30 at Foxhall. Now, it's fair to say I think Ipswich's start to the season hasn't quite gone the way they would have hoped. But you look at the strength and depth that they've got in that side, and certainly the riders they've got leading the line. Former world champion Jason Doyle, of course, involved. And they've also got people like Danny King in the side and Eric Riss. And, there's some big hitters in there. And surely it's going to turn around at some point, isn't it, Dave?
Yeah, it's not gone right for Ipswich so far for a variety of reasons, and they're pleased that obviously there have been League Cup fixtures and not league matches so far, which they've been beaten in. The main issues, obviously, illnesses for Cameron Heaps and Paul Stark. And Cameron Heaps is certainly someone that needs the laps, needs the track time after the problems he had last year. And obviously, once you miss a meeting through illness, you're out for a week, so they've lost track time there. And then Eric Riss, who rode superbly for them at Peterborough in their first League Cup meeting, he had a crash in Landshut at the weekend, so he missed their match at Kings Lynn on Monday night. So it's almost like deja vu, because last year, you'll recall that Ipswich lost about 3 riders in the space of a week, and that's what's happened, albeit they're not long-term, thankfully. They would have wanted to keep their full team on track and get things together. Clearly, with a top 2 of Jason Doyle and Danny King, that is as strong, if not stronger, than everybody else. Throw in Troy Batchelor, if we can see the real Troy Batchelor compared to what we saw last year. Riss had a really low average last season, but has started in good form. Then the prospects for Ipswich look encouraging, but they're a club that I think, because of the issues they had last year, making a quick start, making a good start is absolutely essential, and they wouldn't have wanted this kind of disruption that they've had in the League Cup. And the fact that is a heck of an opener against Bellevue, assuming that's the Bellevue team that we expect it to be on the 5th of May. That's a big night at Vauxhall, and the pressure's on Ipswich, on Richie Hawkins, on Chris Louis to deliver for the Witches. They've gone out, they've got Jason Doyle, one of the world's top riders, so certainly the mentality is there. They know what they want to do, but it's up to the boys to go out on track and do it for Ipswich to have a much better year.
Ipswich have a couple of riders who, by their own admission, didn't have quite the season that they were hoping last year in the side this year. And I'm thinking in particular Eric Riss and Troy Batchelor, who fairly indifferent, certainly in the opening part of the season, then got themselves going perhaps towards the end. But we're seeing different characters entirely. Troy Batchelor has had some good form so far for Oxford in the Championship, and same for Eric Riss as well, who's racing for Redcar, put some big scores away there, and has done all right when he's been riding for Ipswich. But I know he's got better to give, but it must be pleasing to see these riders getting back to the form that we know that they're capable of. Yeah,
I think Eric Riss had issues both on and off track last year, especially. I know he had issues with the tyres. They weren't for his setup, they weren't right. He's clearly done lots of work over the winter to improve, and from what I've seen so far, he looks much more the Eric Riss that we've seen in years gone by. And for Troy Batchelor, similar comments to what we mentioned about Nick Morris earlier. In the Swindon team that was champions in 19, Troy Batchelor was almost every inch as good as Jason Doyle. Their averages were very, very similar, and they were the out-and-out top 2 in the league. So the fact that Ipswich have got the 2 of them, plus Danny King, plus Eric Riss, it looks good. There was some debate about them building a team slightly below the points limit, and I think they accept those comments, but they say they've got the riders that they want. The proof of the pudding's in the eating. But I think if they get certainly 2 of the riders in that team who had tough seasons last year back to anywhere near their best, that Ipswich team should be certainly challenging and probably in the top 4.
Well, another team who are certainly for many people favourites this year, or one of the favourites for glory, are the Sheffield Tigers, who opened their league campaign at home at Ollerton against the reigning champions, the Peterborough Panthers, on May the 5th. That's next Thursday, from the point of view that this podcast is released. You might be listening to it after the event, but Thursday, May the 5th is the date. And Sheffield have already shown in the Premiership League Cup what they've got, because when they've travelled to some tricky places like Bellevue, like Wolves, they've got wins on the road, and that's certainly a big indicator of success potentially. And now with riders like Jack Holder in their lineup, they've got Adam Ellis, Craig Cook, Tobias Musielak back in British Speedway as well. It's an exciting lineup, and you fancy it's going to be a good year for the Tigers fans.
Yeah, Sheffield have done, I think, what people expected. Possibly even more so whether you thought they'd win at both Bellevue and Wolverhampton. Certainly, I felt they'd win at Bellevue in the League Cup. I think the Wolverhampton result was a more impressive one. It was really perfect team building over the winter. There were some eyebrows raised when they released Josh Pickering, who ended up, of course, at Kings Lynn, and Kings Lynn are mighty happy about that. I think probably the situation was that Josh Pickering actually did too well with Sheffield last season, and it didn't quite work out with what else they had in mind. But to put together a team of Holder and Ellis, so you've got a newly introduced Grand Prix rider, the British champion, Craig Cook coming in, Tobias Mugelak back in British Speedway, and that's great to see because he's a good guy and a really exciting rider. And the space for what they've built lower down. Sheffield, I think, went into the season as favourites. A lot can happen between April and October. We've seen that time and again. You don't know, whether injuries or form will affect them, and you don't know what other clubs will do. Clearly, Bellevue have changed the game straight away, as far as we can tell. But Sheffield, I think we've talked through all the 6 Premiership clubs, and we've found reasons to be optimistic about all of them, and reasons why they will feel optimistic. And that's the great thing about this league. It does look pretty close and tight, but I would see no reason why Sheffield shouldn't retain that spot as favourites at this stage. We'll see in 3 or 4 matches' time, but if they can carry on that momentum from the League Cup group, which they've won 3 out of 3 so far, really impressive stuff, and Sheffield should be there.
Well, as you mentioned, Dave, a few team changes for Sheffield from last year. Outgoing are Josh Pickering, Troy Batchelor and Daniel Hume. And in come Craig Cook, Tobias Mugelak and Connor Mountain. And Ryan Guest has been speaking with the Sheffield team manager, Simon Stead, about integrating those new boys in and looking ahead to the season coming up.
Everybody's doing their job. Everybody's putting in a good performance. That takes the pressure off the heat leaders. And like you said, it's a more relaxed camp, and I think, of course, that helps. But just the fact that everybody's doing their job and riding so well for the team is testament to the lads.
Yeah, if we can just take a quick look at a couple of the boys more in focus. Craig Cook, he hasn't really got going with Glasgow in the Championship at all yet. Only the 4th time on the bike this year, but already showing signs, picking up race wins here and there as well, and plenty to build on for him.
Yeah, and I thought he had a really strong meeting at Wolverhampton. Spoke to him a lot about that, and he's such a talent, and I think, he's only just getting going. We haven't even started yet. Like you said, Glasgow haven't started, so he's not had a lot of track time, and I think with more track time, we'll only see him get better and better. And I think if that's the sign of things to come, then we can all be really excited about it. Yeah,
before the season we spoke about the reserve pairing with Steph and Connor coming back to Sheffield after previous spells as well. Like you say, the way the team was built, the pressure was off them, but when you look at Stefan tonight, involved in all 3 5-1s as well.
Yeah, he did really well. I'm pleased for him because, he wants to do so well all the time, and again, he's not had a lot of track time with Birmingham. Two rain-offs there as on their home meetings, so he's not had that much not that much track time. So his ability and his effort last season didn't go unnoticed, and that's why he got another shot at it this year. And he's proving to be a really good signing for us once again.
Yeah, and that extra track time, bike time that you spoke about, they're going to be really important as well now with the gap in Sheffield's schedule as well, whether that's Championship or abroad.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I was speaking to Adam, and he's May's really going to get kick-started for a lot of the lads. Adam's schedule in particular is really, really hectic in May, and I think it'd be great for a few of them to get a bit more track time. I think you can take a lot from actually racing your bike. I was a big believer about staying active and riding as much as you can. So, like I said, early signs are very, very good. And the beauty about it is, I think we can build on what we've already done.
Peterborough reigning champions, only the one team change, so going to be a good one to kick the league proceedings off here.
Yeah, they're a very, very good lineup. They're a solid outfit with a great team manager in Rob Lyon, who I respect very much. And it will be a tough test for us. We know that. But we just need to concentrate on what we can do. Concentrate on how we go about our business and improve on tonight and keep doing what we're doing.
Sheffield team manager Simon Stead speaking to Ryan Guest there about integrating those new lads in and looking ahead to that first fixture in the Premiership for Sheffield against Peterborough. Next week, it's Thursday, May the 5th, the opening fixture for the Sheffield Tigers against the Peterborough Panthers. Now, from Panthers to Cheetahs, because it was a big fixture at the Oxford Stadium last week. Another sellout crowd, over 2,000 tickets sold. and even more people watching on the BSN live stream as well, as the Oxford Cheetahs took on the Poole Pirates. It was a very close meeting. It didn't start off close, and you might argue the final scoreline didn't end close either, but the lead did swap over a couple of times between Oxford and Poole, and great to see such a big crowd thoroughly entertained. So much so, I think they're on the verge of selling out for the match at Oxford this week as well when they take on the Redcar Bears. But for the Poole Pirates, I mean, every year, is there ever a weak Poole Pirates side? But the Poole Pirates, Dave, once again looking very, very strong and look to be heading to be the team to beat in the Championship once again.
Yeah, you can never actually nail people on at this stage. But if I was going to nail somebody on, it would be Poole to be not only top 6 but probably top 2 as well. They just look so strong all the way. They've built a team with 3 big heat leaders, and they've got the strength lower down, so fair play to Poole once again for doing that. Oxford, I think, is a fantastic story. Fantastic to see that club back. The pictures I've seen, the footage I've seen so far from the opening 2 meetings, I'm heading down there on Wednesday myself to have a look. I'm really looking forward to it. They're not... In the first season, it's highly unlikely that they're going to win all the meetings. They've done well to build the team. They did. Obviously, the sad loss of Kent from the Championship this year, the Central Park venue, meant that Oxford were able to go in and get Scott Nicholls and Troy Batchelor as their top 2. I was really pleased to see Jack Thomas scoring, I think it was pay 15 at Newcastle on Sunday. He's a young rider to watch. He's got real talent. Good to see. And yeah, there'll be ups and downs on track for Oxford this year, no doubt about that. And if they make the playoffs, they make top 6 in their first year, I think that would be a good achievement in that first year. But the big thing is to build the club, keep the crowds coming, keep the entertainment going. And those people that have not had Speedway there for 15 years have now got it on a weekly basis, which is wonderful. And I just hope that also gives others encouragement that the sport can come back to those places. Oxford's a really good story.
Yeah, it is, and they've got it right as well, because they've got a modern feel to it too, and they open the pits up more than anywhere I've ever seen in Speedway, and that's not to say this doesn't happen anywhere else, because I just haven't seen it. But at Oxford, people were arriving early, say about 5:30. You could get straight into the pits. You can unrestricted access pretty much into the pits, meet your idols, have a look at the bikes, get your photos taken. It's a fantastic thing to be able to do, especially for kids, but to be honest, for adults as well. It's brilliant. And they've got these food stalls, street food going on. They've got a DJ playing music. It's a modern way of hosting a meeting, I have to say. And a bit of a nostalgia element, I suppose, for many people in the area as well, who will remember going to meetings there in the days of some of the great idols that used to ride for Oxford. And, you know, I found it... I mean, I only went once when I was a youngster, but, you know, it was great. It brought back memories. It was great.
Yeah, I think the nostalgia element is a fair one. I grew up, as people will know, supporting Coventry. Oxford and Coventry was a big rivalry in the 1980s. I remember going down to Cowley, watching Hans Nielsen and the great Simon Wigg taking on Tommy Knudsen and Kelvin Tatum. Fantastic days, fantastic meetings. And then more recently, working in the media, remember the old facilities, which are probably quite similar to how they are now. But the stadium itself looks great. And what it does is it gives encouragement. The work they've done there, you mentioned the tree clearing and whatever, the mess that they've swept up and got rid of. These sites, and I'm involved again with the Coventry efforts, and people say you'll never be branded in such a bad state, and it is. But Oxford prove that with the work and the people there that are involved, you can turn around a situation like that in not too much time. I don't know whether when they had the clearance to say yes, you can run sport at Oxford again, which came through, I think it was midway through last year, whether they were really looking at 22 or 23 to restart. And then they just realised so quickly, we can do this. We can get a team on track in 22 and get it done. And to have that known by September, October last year so they could build a team, I think it's a phenomenal job by everyone there. And yeah, more power to them. Fantastic job. It's great to see the way it started.
And if you've got Coventry heritage, you're going to be in luck, because Peter York, the former Coventry announcer, is the man on the mic on the centre green as well.
Yeah, and apparently Dave Hammond as well in the box, who was also the regular announcer at Coventry for many years. So very much so. And you made a good point about the access as well with the riders. The riders are fantastic when it comes to supporters and kids and selfies and autographs. So these venues where you can get in these places, not every venue has quite the same facilities or the ability to get in beforehand, but certainly in Oxford, I like what they've done with the pits on the back straight. Everyone will look after you, they'll welcome you, so take advantage of it because it's really good.
Yeah, and it's amazing who you meet in the pits, because it was the featured match on BSN last week, and, well, do you know what? There was some celebrity spanner men, because we had former world champion Chris Holder and his brother Jack Holder, a current Grand Prix star heading into the 2022 GP season, and they were on the spanners and helping out the Cook brothers, Zach and Ben Cook. So we had a chat with them. Hayley Bromley and Lee Kilby having a chat with Chris and Jack Holder.
Yeah, it's my day off. Zachy helps me throughout the week for Sheffield, so yeah, on my day off I got to repay the favour and help him. And but no, it's all good and all good fun. Nothing else where I would want to be.
That's it, surrounding yourself in the Speedway world, eh? None of us want to be anywhere else.
No, exactly. But yeah, tonight is the first time I've been to Oxford, so I can't give him too many tips. I think you might have been here.
Oh, a long time ago. I just come for the food. I heard it's good.
We're just winging it.
Just wing it. I mean, Chris Holder, the 2012 World Speedway champion. We don't get to see you often enough on UK shores. Obviously, a stalwart of Pool Pirates, still very much in the pits over there with Midlow, with Jack. The boys 2 points down at the moment, but not doing too bad.
Yeah, it's looking quite good. Like Jack said, I haven't been here for a long time, and I obviously heard all the hype about the place and seen the changes and everything, and that's not far away from Poole either. So thought we'd come up, have a look, and it's really good. Really impressed with it, and the Pirates are digging deep, and hopefully we just snatch it on the line.
That's what we want for the viewers, eh? I mean, I know you're not racing over at the moment, but it still must make you feel really pleased to get tracks like this back into British Speedway, because it does nothing but add to the quality that we've got, and in the hope that we grow and grow and grow in the future.
For sure.
And hopefully you'll be back in the future.
Yeah, definitely. Like, you only got to look at the crowd here. It's it's one of the biggest crowds I've seen in England, bar Poole, for a long time. But yeah, Matt's actually watching, I think, so I've got to keep plugging him. But yeah, of course, and it's always good to get tracks back and all that kind of thing, so it's excellent. And obviously rules and regulations abroad make it hard for guys to come back here, but while you live here, it's easy to race here, so that's the bottom line. But at the minute it's a bit out of my hands, but yeah, one day in the future for sure.
That'd be terrific.
I mean, Jack, for you it must be an interesting season, making your debut in the Grand Prix series. You've seen your brother Chris do it. He's won Grand Prix, he's won the World Championship. Do you think you can follow? Yeah, absolutely. Do you think you can follow in older brother's footsteps?
I hope so. That's everyone's dream, and that's my own dream to do that. And yeah, to be honest, it hasn't really sunk in that I'm actually in there. I'm still trying to pinch myself, and I think come next weekend, I think it will all set in that rare and trying to chase my dream, and it's going to happen. So I'm really excited and can't wait for it, and yeah, hopefully you can help me as much as I helped him.
That was what I was going to say, actually, because we remember you there a lot, when Chris did it. Going to return that favour?
Yeah, as much as I can. The first round's obviously a little bit difficult because we race on a Friday in Poland and they're on Saturday, so getting there is going to be tricky. But if I can, of course, I want to be there. It's I've been there, and it's a lot of pressure, a lot of nerves and everything, and keep him under control. But I'm sure he'll be fine. It's just like it's like any other meeting, right? Yeah. But obviously your life depends on it. But he'll want to do good, and he's beaten all these guys before, so it's just doing it on that day is the hardest part.
Yeah.
What are you getting up to these days then, Chris, with you racing in Poland? Where else are you racing? Are you racing anywhere else?
I'm hanging around. I'm everywhere. It's been good, since the COVID's all sort of blown over a little bit. We can travel a lot easier, so we're stuck in Poland, but now back in England pretty much full time. So, Max is getting older, so hanging out with him and keeping an eye on Jack and watching the Poole Pirates, really.
Oh, so there you go. That's Chris Holder and Jack Holder, who were working on the spanners in the pits in their downtime for the Cook brothers for the Poole Pirates. And, do you know what? It worked because, the Cook brothers had a fairly decent night, as did the Pirates. It finished Oxford 42, Poole 48. And speaking afterwards, we caught up with the two team managers. We'll hear from Jason Crump in a moment, but first, Neil Middleditch.
I mean, it was all a bit of an unknown for us because they changed the track since I was here last, and so we're sort of just trying to pick up from riders who've been here. But yeah, no, the boys did really well tonight.
Well, as we all know, Poole are they're the pace setters in the league, and after the result Friday, I think the boys did a pretty decent job to claw us back into the match. Just ran out of a little bit of steam. Scott had a bit of a bike problem in Heat 13, but yeah, I mean, Poole are a tough team, and it's no disgrace to get.
No, and you can take a lot of positives away from that.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle's had a great night. Dylan showing some good form. Jack picked himself up. We were a man down before we started, so always makes it a bit tough. But Poole are a great team, and my old mate Midlow does a good job managing them, and the recipe's been in the water down there for years, hasn't it?
As Jason Crump speaking with Lee Kilby. After their defeat against the Poole Pirates at home, the Oxford Cheetahs then went on a northern tour. They went to Berwick last Saturday, where they were beaten 59-31, but got a win on the road against the Newcastle Diamonds, 41-48. A big four-pointer in the Championship away for Oxford, who are back in action this week. Wednesday at home against the Redcar Bears in the Championship Knockout Cup first round, first leg. And the return on Friday will be back at Redcar at the Echo Arena, 7:30 start time for the second leg of that Championship Knockout Cup first round clash against the Oxford Cheetahs, and that match will be screened live on British Speedway Network, BSN. You can sign up for that for Friday night. In the next part of No Brakes, No Fear, the official British Speedway podcast, we're going to be talking a little bit about Leicester. We're going to hear from Richie Worrall and Stewart Dickson in the next part of No Brakes, No Fear.
No Brakes, No Fear, the official British Speedway podcast.
Welcome back. I'm Ian Brannan. In this episode, I'm joined by Dave Rowe of Eurosport, who has been looking ahead to what's going to be happening in the Premiership season, which gets underway on Eurosport on Monday night, the 2nd of May, when Wolves host the Kings Lynn Stars. Right now, we're going to have a little general review of what's been happening elsewhere in Speedway, across the Championship in particular, because the Birmingham Brummies took on the Berwick Bandits last Wednesday, but it was a meeting that was abandoned after two completed heats, a big crash involving Josh Orty, and not so much the lack of ambulances, but the lack of the right medical cover, the right qualifications. Morphine was administered, and that really changed things. Dave Rowe, you know a little bit more about this. What was the situation with the Brummies?
Yeah, it's a concerning situation. Obviously, first and foremost, our best wishes go to Josh Orty, who's got a broken leg, and I understand has had successful surgery on that. So we hope that he gets back to full health soon. He lost it. He actually lifted on the second bend and recovered it, and then lifted on the fourth bend and came down into the fence just beyond the air fence. For those that know Perry Bar, there's a tractor entry just off bend 4, and he hit the fence just beyond that. And he actually got off the bike, but he still went into the fence pretty hard. And yeah, it's a concern. What happened? Obviously, he had treatment on the track, and we could see from the box what was going on there. And we were initially told that a county ambulance was on the way, and then that very quickly changed to say that there was going to be actually a 6-hour wait for a county ambulance, which is, well, that's a story in itself. When we can go on forever about the current situation within the NHS and all the waiting lists and hospitals and whatever. But anyway, that was the situation. But obviously the paramedic had also said, well, because he had administered morphine, as you rightly say, then he would have to accompany Josh to hospital anyway. So it's going to get clubs are going to have to look at this as to will they need to extend their medical cover beyond what is required as the minimum. And that's clearly, when you extend that obviously means looking at the provision for a second ambulance on site and a second paramedic, such that if the main paramedic has to leave the stadium, the meeting can continue. Obviously, there's going to be a cost element to that, but the other side to that is what's the cost of supporters coming to a meeting, seeing two races, crash. Obviously, everyone understands crash can happen, but then the meeting to be abandoned, obviously, is not good. There was a situation, a similar one at Mildenhall when they ran the Under-21 semi-final earlier in the season. Very similar delay quoted for ambulance cover, and they actually basically put together a new medical team on the fly on the day. There's a motocross venue nearby that they managed to get assistance from, and they managed to rerun that meeting. It's daytime meeting, of course, so they got it back underway after a delay of about 2.5 hours, and they got it run, which was fair credit to them. But if you're an evening club and you have an incident like that, then it must be a concern. I know Leicester put out a statement straight away saying they would have 2 ambulances at all meetings from that point on, and I'm sure it's been discussed in higher offices than mine as to what you do. The first priority is the injured rider. Obviously, everyone will understand that, but obviously it is not ideal at all to have a meeting curtailed after 2 races. You've got Berwick travelling a long way, the travel of that, the fans have only seen 2 races. So hopefully they'll be able to come up with some way in which this doesn't happen in future.
Yeah, it's a tricky one because you speak to any promoter and they will tell you that one of your biggest costs of running a Speedway meeting is the medical cover issue, and really doubling that, you're doubling your costs. It's a tricky one to balance, but we'll see what can be done to try and smooth that situation out. Now, a weekend of mixed fortunes for the Glasgow Tigers. We're going to come to their visit at Leicester in a few moments, but first of all, at Ashfield, they took on the Berwick Bandits in a fairly local derby, really, as far as things go in this part of the world, between Glasgow and Berwick. 56-34 it ended. And is this the season where we are going to finally see Glasgow do it for the Facenas? Because that's a big thing on the agenda. Getting that league championship is surely the number one objective, and certainly at home, they're looking pretty invincible.
Yeah, Glasgow probably feels a bit like Bellevue. We talked about Bellevue earlier in the Premiership. Now, it's nowhere near that long since Glasgow won it, 2011, I think it was. But it's the fact that, you're right, obviously under new ownership and with so much investment in the Ashfield Stadium as well. And again, as with Bellevue, they've been there or thereabouts. They've been to grand finals and things have gone wrong, and they've lost those grand finals, notably in 2019 when their former manager Stewart Dickson came back and won it with Leicester, and then last year of course they lost out to Poole. Glasgow will definitely be in the playoffs with the team they've got, I have no doubt about that. And I think Berwick, I agree with you, I think they look a good team, and certainly the scores they've knocked in around their home circuit so far would indicate that they are going to be very, very hard to beat there. And Chris Harris has found the way to ride that track. Goodness me, if you see some of the footage from Bomber on Saturday, he's a very, very good leader for that team. There are clubs in the Championship who will, I think, build some pretty strong home records, and there's no doubt that Berwick will be one of them. The question is, can they find probably 2 or 3 away venues they can get points or even wins, and that's what you need to make the top 6.
Well, it was a bit of a night to forget for Glasgow on the road as they visited Leicester, the Paul Chapman and Sons Arena. They went down 52-38. But they had a closer meeting against the Redcar Bears, did Leicester, on the Friday night. It ended 48-42, Leicester claiming an away point, but there were some frustrations, particularly with some of the decisions from the referee. Nick Morris showing his frustration by riding straight through the tapes at one point, and Richie Worrall also had some fairly strong views. Didn't mince his words, our Richie. He's been speaking with Ryan Nassau after that narrow defeat against Redcar on Friday night last week.
Richie, a fair result in the end?
Yeah, we got a point out of it, didn't we? A couple of guys struggled. But definitely would have been nice to get a win. You know, we have lost on the road now. That's the 3rd one. Slightly annoying when we're so strong at home. And I look at the team and I do think we're really strong. We just can't seem to do it on the road.
Well, improving signs tonight in comparison to the last 2.
Oh, definitely, yeah. You know, we got a point out of it. Had a tough red car. And you've got lads that are going quick as well. So yeah, there's that positive, I suppose. Is what top 3 is.
Yeah,
there's that positive.
Personally, thought you rode well tonight, did you?
Yeah, I mean, I do like this track anyway. Always prepared really well. It's always raceable. And yeah, I do. I actually really enjoy riding this place. So reflects on the results, obviously.
And do you think that Leicester need to pick up their away form to secure a place in the playoffs, or will your home form get you there?
I mean, look, picking up a point on the road's not bad, I suppose. Wins would be better, but I feel like if we picked up a point every time we went away, we'd make it into the playoffs. And if we won every single home match, so like I said, that's the main focus now, isn't it? You know, getting the playoffs, and then, you know,
build from there.
Yeah, and then worry about the rest of it. To be honest, you can't get too far ahead. But it's very, very early doors.
Yeah.
You know, Stewart's quite a witty fella, and I don't expect us to be losing on the road. I'm putting everything in, and I know Nick is. I know everybody is, to be honest. But yeah, it's just not quite good enough right now.
And the last one, a word on Nick. After his issue with the referee, he looked really fired up.
Yeah, I mean, that was a very bad decision, to be honest. And without putting my foot in my mouth, I'm seeing a lot of new referees, a lot of new faces that I've never seen before. You know, this is professional sport, this, at the end of the day. A professional sport with money on the line, wages on the line. And that decision was, well, it was shocking, to be honest. And I've seen a couple of shocking ones go against me that cost me money, go against Nick that cost him money. So something really needs to change, because it's on that sense, it's so unprofessional. You know, we're all here putting our necks on the line, livelihoods, and then we've got somebody who can make a decision like that and take money off us. You know, there should be some kind of system set up, like horse racing. You know, you can see who got across the line first. You couldn't, all that money, you know, again, there's money at stake, betting and things like that. You could not go, right, who do you think won that one then? I'm not sure, actually, but just give it him. That's what's going on in British Speedway, and it is absolutely shocking, to be honest. Because like I said, livelihoods are on the line. I feel like I'm ranting on, but it needs to change. It really does need to change. We're all trying to be as professional as we can, and then we've got that happening. It's just ridiculous.
I see your point. I'm playing devil's advocate. If Nick hadn't packed up in the previous race, thus costing him 2 points, does he have the same reaction, do you think?
Of course he does, because Nick wants to win every single race. Like me, you know, we're animals in that sense. That's why we're here, and that's why we go on a bike, and that's why not many people can get on and ride with the aggression. Well, to the level that we do, there's a little bit of something inside you that just makes you stand out from the rest.
So Richie Worrall there venting his views, and it was a bit of an explosive evening for Nick Morris as well. That said, I'm not sure that the Red Car Bears were too keen on complaining about any of the decisions, Dave, because it went their way. And Red Car, as it stands at the time of recording, unbeaten in the championship, wins all the way.
Well, seemingly Nick Morris felt that he had got the verdict over Eric Riss in Heat 11 and was not shy in pointing out that. And actually, a bit of pantomime stuff, I think, probably goes down quite well with the crowd. It's interesting. Red Car have got a good team. Absolutely, they have. Certainly a great heat leader trio, an exciting team, and a club that's done very well in recent years. What they also have, I think, is a very, very fair racetrack, and one that other teams enjoy getting around. Whether that will hamper them when it comes to big meetings and trying to get big scores on the board in aggregates, I don't know. But what I'll say is that I spoke to Stewart Dickson, the Leicester manager, who was absolutely mortified by the fact they lost 60-30 at Plymouth on Tuesday. He was absolutely spewing, spitting blood, whatever. When Stewart loses, Stewart's not a happy man, I can tell you that. He was very unhappy. And I said to him, I think you'll get a point at Red Car, whatever happens. And that's what they did. And you could argue, with no disrespect to Plymouth, who've done a great job but have got their issues with Palmtoft injured and covering that gap at number 1, you would probably argue that Red Car on paper looks stronger than Plymouth. And yet Plymouth went to Red Car and got a point, and so did Leicester. And so I wonder with Red Car, maybe when it comes towards the real crunch to business end, going to a 2-legged final, probably away teams will go there thinking we actually enjoy this track and we can, if not win, we can get close there. That might be the one step that Red Car have to take.
You always see really close meetings at Red Car. You very rarely see a pasting. And that's something that's not lost on Jamie Swales, one of the Red Car co-promoters, who says that fairness of the track really actually perhaps works against Red Car themselves and prevents them from being able to run up big leads.
Bigger leads would be lovely, but this track just doesn't lend itself to that. It is the fairest track in this league, possibly even the country. So while we'd like to run the scores up a bit more, especially for like the cup matches and playoff matches, it's going to be really hard to do around here. I've spoke about it with a few people before, and I keep saying I wouldn't change it. Heat 15 tonight, you won't see a better heat than that anywhere in the country. There's probably more passes in that race than some tracks get in a full meeting. So although it's hard for us to build a lead up, the crowd get really into it. So, you know, if we had a bit more home track advantage, then Leicester probably wouldn't have got a point tonight, but I'm happy with the performance. Second strings weighed in with some points tonight, which was nice to see. Just the reserves struggled a little bit, but overall, once again, I think the team's building, and as the season goes on, it's going to get better and better.
So that ended Redcar 48, Leicester 42. Scunthorpe Scorpions took on the Birmingham Brummies. Of course, Scunthorpe being without Josh Orty, not ideal for facing the Scunthorpe Scorpions, who are a side who I think you can say do have quite a bit of home track advantage. It finished 54-36.
Definitely looks like a Scunthorpe team that's been built with the prime aim of winning home matches. I don't think that would be unfair to say that. But last year, of course, it got them into the playoffs because they did get an away win at Birmingham, it was, in fact, for Scunthorpe, and they kept a very strong home record throughout the season. I don't see any reason why that won't be the case. Ryan Douglas is in terrific form this year. Zane Kennedy's been a really good pickup. He went well there last year with Leicester, and he scored big against Birmingham. I don't think we've seen, really, in case of Birmingham, they've only run 12 races at home so far this season, with rain-offs and the issue we saw about with Josh Orty and a abandoned meeting due to the weather again. So it's hard to really read where they're going to be, but certainly they haven't yet picked up a point away from home, so that will disappoint them. And I think in the Scunthorpe meeting they fell away Birmingham towards the end. I think they were in reasonable contention until heat 10, heat 11, and it faded away from them. So that's something they'll want to improve on. But they've got a tough one at Poole this week as well.
And speaking of tough meetings, Newcastle have had a tough time. They went to Edinburgh and went down 58-32 in the Championship Knockout Cup first round, second leg. And then also in the Championship, beaten by Oxford, who were the visitors. Oxford getting those points on the road, 4 points in the bag for them, winning 41-48 the final score on Sunday.
Yeah, really difficult. We know the situation with Bradley Wilson-Dean. He's currently on the injured list. He wasn't scoring, in all fairness. There was clearly something wrong, whether it was mechanical or fitness-wise early on. So they have been using guests at number one, which probably hasn't hampered them too much. They've used the likes of Richie Worrall, for example, as a guest. But then, of course, Paul Stark, who was going well, he had an illness, so he's missed the last couple of meetings as well. They have got people, definitely, that can get around their home circuit, the likes of Max Clegg and James Wright, and we've seen some and Matthew Weathers too. They've got to get some home wins on the board, haven't they, Newcastle? I don't think, with all due respect, that their ambitions are not going to be rocking up to away venues and picking up big away wins at this stage. For that promotion, for that club, and we desperately hope it works out, because we nearly lost Newcastle at the end of last season, so it's important that they survive. They've got to try and find a way of winning some home matches, and interesting matches this weekend for them, because they've got Berwick home and away. So I think, again, they know they're going to have it tough at Sheffield Park, but can they get something in the home meeting?
Yeah, a big weekend ahead in that North-East derby for Newcastle and Berwick, as Dave mentioned, they're home and away this weekend. It was Glasgow's first trip out on the road last week and ended in defeat, actually, in the Championship as they visited the Paul Chapman & Sons Arena. Leicester Lions 52, Glasgow Tigers 38. We can hear the thoughts after that meeting now from the Leicester team manager, Stewart Dickson.
Yeah, it was a very good performance to win 52-38 against one of the top teams in the league, no doubt about that. I think it surpassed expectations. 3 points for us, none for them. Yeah, very pleased, yeah.
After what's been a tough week with the defeat down at Plymouth and then getting a point last night at Redcar, Nick Morris and Richie Worrall led the team well tonight, but the 5-1 from the Thompson twins in 14 brought the house down.
Yeah, certainly did. Benjamin Basso, a very spectacular rider, very good rider. No quarter asked or given by any of the three riders. Benjamin Basso done a very brave move going into the third bend, and very fair, very hard move. And the twins repaid the compliment coming into the first bend on the next lap, I think it was. And very brave move, and he done well to stay on the bike. Hard but fair move, both back with the twins, gave him back what he gave to them, and as you say, it rightly brought the house down when we got the 5-1, yeah.
And crucial wins on the night for people like Connor Mountain, Joe Thompson with a couple of great rides, and it'll take the riders a while to get into the season, but what's your thoughts so far on what the Lions have done?
Yeah, well, I think we had a tough meeting last week against Poole, one of the favourites for the league. I think we've also faced Glasgow tonight, another one of the favourites for the league. We got a result last night at Redcar, so we bounced back, obviously, for the disappointment with Scunthorpe and Plymouth away from home. To get 4 points over the last 48 hours has certainly been more like it from a Lions point of view. I mentioned to Louis Kerr tonight for coming in and doing a very steady job for us tonight. done very well, and that was without a skipper tonight, Kel Howarth, who hopefully will be back next week against Redcar. But I'm very pleased. 4 points over the 2 nights was certainly the minimum target. We got that, and I am very pleased, and it's more like what I expect from this Lions team, yeah.
And it doesn't get any easier next week. Redcar in town, but that's quite a few of the top teams here already, and you've seen 2 of them off. You can see the Redcar team off next week.
Yeah, fingers crossed. We are quite good round our home patch. You know what I mean? The riders have proved that over the course of the start of this season already. We have another tough challenge next week. Redcar have got an excellent heat leader trio. Louis Kerr will be back here, obviously riding for them the way Speedway works. But obviously we'll hopefully have our skipper back, as you say, with Richie and Nick leading for the front again. Kyle will join them again, and the twins a very good run here as well. Connor done well as well. We're quite a force on our home track. Redcar, we know, will give us a stiff opposition, but a tough meeting. But we look forward to the challenge. Yeah.
Congratulations, Stuart. Another good 3 points, and good luck for next week.
Thanks very much. Cheers. Thank you.
As the Leicester team boss, Stewart Dickson, speaking with Martin Coleman after Leicester's win against the Glasgow Tigers last week, 52-38 it finished. This week for Glasgow, they're again on the road, and this time visiting Armadale. Just that juicy tie between the Edinburgh Monarchs and the Glasgow Tigers. Friday night, 7:30. Edinburgh will be showing that as a live stream as well, so you can look out for that. But that's one of the great fixtures in it. Scottish derby, and it's all on the line.
Always an interesting fixture, Glasgow and Edinburgh. They had 2 close meetings in the league last season when they both won at each other's venues. They met in the Knockout Cup when Edinburgh went through. They met in the playoffs when Glasgow went through. They always seem to be meeting in competitions, and I know the atmosphere there is absolutely fervent, and both teams will be desperate. Glasgow, yeah, I don't think they'll be too upset with the defeat at Leicester. Leicester is going to prove to be a very tough place for people to visit. We've seen the 60-plus scores that Leicester have had at home in some of their meetings so far. Stewart Dickson referred to the race, and it's worth watching. It's out there to watch. The race between the Thompson boys and Benjamin Basso is pretty fierce, and it's definitely worth watching. But I would think Glasgow will get some points on the road as things go. Whether it happens this weekend, I don't know. I think Edinburgh will be really fired up for it. I think there'll be 2 really good derby clashes there.
Well, we've got a big clash on Wednesday then this week. Upcoming fixtures. Poole Pirates hosting the Birmingham Brummies. Now, Birmingham have not had the best start, it's fair to say, and they've had a bit of misfortune as well with rain-offs, with injury to riders like Josh Orty in the last week, and then to be visiting the Poole Pirates. It's not necessarily the place you would choose to go at this stage of the season for the Brummies.
Funnily enough, this was the Elite League Grand Final back in 2013. How times have changed really for both clubs. I mean, Poole, we've talked about Poole. We know the strength, but I think they'll be pleased actually to see a Birmingham team with Adam Ellis arriving at Wimborne Road, because I'm sure that Adam will be desperate to have a good few races with the likes of Danny King and Steve Worrall and Richard Lawson. So there'll be some interesting clashes there. You would have to make Poole favourites quite clearly.
All the other fixtures coming up this week then, also on Wednesday night, it's the Oxford Cheetahs versus the Redcar Bears in the Championship Knockout Cup first round, first leg. The return of that will be on Friday night back at the Echo Arena, and that second leg will be screened live on the British Speedway Network. On Thursday night, we mentioned it's some League Cup Southern action in the Premiership League Cup. It's a bit of a dead rubber. Ipswich Witches versus the Kings Lynn Stars. Kings Lynn already through to the final in that section. Elsewhere on Friday night then, I mentioned Redcar and Oxford. Scunthorpe Scorpions hosting the Plymouth Gladiators. Scunthorpe are running a live stream of that. We've already touched on Edinburgh versus the Glasgow Tigers, with Edinburgh EMTV covering that with their live stream. Saturday night, it's the Leicester Lions versus the Redcar Bears starting at 7. The Berwick Bandits hosting the Newcastle Diamonds. And of course, it's the start of the Grand Prix series as well. All eyes on Croatia for a new era in the Speedway Grand Prix as Discovery Networks take over running the tournament. And, there's going to be quite a few changes. I think over the years there's going to be more changes, but it's certainly going to be a different look. And an exciting season ahead in the Speedway Grand Prix for all of us, but of course the Brits.
Ty Wolfenden, Robert Lambert and Dan Bewley, and obviously we know the circumstances that have led to Dan being called up, which obviously, worldwide political events and so on, he wouldn't have wanted it in that way, but now he's there. You make the best of it, absolutely, and you have a go, and I think the fact that he rode in the Speedway Euro Championship last year will stand him in good stead. Obviously the Grand Prix is a further step up from that, but at least he's got the idea of how these big meetings do operate, and it's going to be absolutely fascinating. You're right. Discovery are changing things. They're trying to raise the bar. You'll see lots of new innovations, and hopefully we'll see a good world title fight as well. I'm sure that Bartosz Marzik will start as favourite, no doubt about that. He did get outdone by Mikkel Mikkelsen on his home track in his opener, but he seems to have turned things around since then. Woofy had a crash last week. Thankfully got up and okay, because it did look quite nasty at the time, because I'm sure he's desperate to get back involved. And yeah, you throw in the usual suspects, if you like, towards the top. Going to be a very, very interesting year ahead, and it's good to see, obviously with COVID restrictions easing, thankfully, we're back to a more normal sort of calendar. We've had these double headers, a lot of meetings in Poland in previous years, but now getting out and about to other places once again. Croatia's not been on the schedule for a number of years, so Gorichan will be a slight unknown for some of them, who have probably ridden it before, but maybe not for a while. But yeah, lots of interest in this one. Probably the most eagerly awaited opener for many years, I would say.
Yeah, all eyes on Croatia. It's going to be interesting. And, of course, you can see that on Eurosport 2. You can also get it on the Discovery Plus app as well. And we talked about that earlier, what the Discovery Plus app is going to bring you. But basically, it's going to bring you it without commercials. And instead of having commercials, you're going to have some extra analysis and extra information and things like that. So that's definitely something to consider if you are a Speedway fan. Looking at the other fixtures that are coming up over the next week or so, because of course we're moving into May, and on Sunday Kent Royals host the Mildenhall Fen Tigers in the NDL Knockout Cup semi-final second leg. Newcastle Diamonds host the return of Berwick Bandits, who are back at Brough Park. It's 4 o'clock start for that, and the Glasgow Tigers hosting the return of the Edinburgh Monarchs as well in the second part of that Scottish derby, starting at 6 o'clock at Ashfield on Sunday evening. Bank Holiday Monday, we've got lunchtime Speedway at Bellevue, National Speedway Stadium, Bellevue Aces versus the Peterborough Panthers. And then the first televised live match, as we were talking about earlier, 7:30 the start time for the build-up. All the previews, looking ahead to the season on Eurosport 2 and Discovery Plus. And then it's the action between the Wolverhampton Wolves and the Kings Lynn Stars from Monmore, the first televised match of the season. And Plymouth Gladiators hosting the Poole Pirates in a South Coast derby on Tuesday, May 3rd, in the Championship, starting at 7. And that will complete your next week of racing. We'll be back with you next Wednesday morning to review all of that and look ahead to what else is coming up over the next week or so as well in British Speedway. Wherever you're heading, get down to your local track, support your local Speedway, have a great time, and keep up to date with everything happening in British Speedway on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and online as well at britishspeedway.co.uk. Don't forget, the Speedway Star will be out Thursday morning, and it's a special tribute edition to Nigel Pearson this week in the Speedway Star. So don't forget to get your copy of that and read all about him. And thanks to everyone once again who listened to our tribute to Nigel Pearson last week on No Brakes, No Fear. Have a good week. Enjoy your racing, whether you're there in person, watching it on the TV, and we'll join you next Wednesday to review it all.
No Brakes, No Fear. The official British Speedway podcast.
Sports Social Podcast Network.